Today I have a quick video just showing you the results of my own light fastness test that I conducted, as I was curious to know how light fast my paints were. Light fastness describes how resistant a color is to fading when exposed to light. When a paint is said to be light fast, it means that it resists fading, and the opposite is not light fast or fugitive, which means it fades easily. And we can measure light fastness by exposing a sample paint to a light source for a period of time and then comparing it to an unexposed sample. So the first step to doing your own light fastness test is to swatch out all of your colors. And I'll be testing 4 of my paints: my Himi Gouache, my Nika poster colors, my Winsor Newton gouache, and my Art Spectrum gouache. Step 2 is to cut out your swatches. You can do this in one of 2 ways. You can either cut them in half and store away half in a drawer or somewhere where they won't be exposed to any light and put the other half up on your window where they'll be exposed to light, or you can just cover half of it with a piece of paper or something, so that way when you stick them up to the window, only half of them is receiving light. Step 3 is to stick them up to a window that receives the most amount of light. Since I'm in the southern hemisphere, I want to stick them up to a north facing window. My window is northwest facing, which is good enough for the purposes of this test. I had them up there for just over 3 months, and now let's take a look at the results, starting with the Himi Gouache. The Himi Gouache didn't come with any light fastness ratings, which is why I was most curious to just test them out for myself. As these are student grade paints, I didn't have high expectations for them, but they actually performed surprisingly well. The 2 paints that faded the most were the rose and the violet. The rose isn't as visible on camera, but in person it definitely was quite visible to see the amount of fading that happened. And it's very obvious here to see the amount of fading that happened to the violet in just a matter of 3 months. The other colors did pretty well. Now let's move on to the poster colors, and these ones did come with their own light fastness ratings. They were rated A, B or C, A being completely light fast, and I've written those ratings next to each of the color swatches. The colors that faded the most were the pinks, the reds, the light blue and the purples. There were quite a few paints that were rated B, which in their system meant partially light fast, and a lot of them to me still looked okay. I couldn't notice much visible fading, but then again it had only been 3 months, so maybe if I had extended the test for longer, the fading would have become more obvious in the B rated paints as well. Now let's take a look at the results of the Winsor Newton gouache. So they come with ASTM ratings, which is rated in Roman numerals from 1 to 5, with 1 being excellent light fastness. Now these paints only came with ratings of 1, 2 or just no rating at all, which is again why I was curious to test them out and see what the light fastness was on the paints that didn't come with a rating. So the primary red didn't come with a rating, and this one faded the most out of the colors here. The yellow also didn't come with a rating, but I didn't notice much visible fading. And the rest of the colors also performed pretty well. And lastly, let's take a look at the results of my Art Spectrum paints. They came with a blue wall rating, which is rated on a scale of 1 to 8, this time 8 being excellent light fastness and 1 being not light fast, so it's the opposite of the ASTM one. And you can ignore some of the swatches above a few of the colors. Those were the Winsor Newton paints. Overall, out of all the paints, these ones definitely performed the best. Even the lower rated paints that were rated 4 to 5, I could not notice much fading over the 3 months, so that was a really good sign, especially since across the other 3 brands it seemed like the pinks, the reds and the purples faded most easily. So that's it for this video. I just wanted to quickly share my results in case you also had the same brands or you were just curious to know the light fastness of some of these paints. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!